All right. So, are you missing out on a lot of profits in real estate investing and so on? And if not, what are some of the fundamentals and stuff that you need in order to fix that? Where I'm going with this is a book called The ABCs of Real Estate Investing by Ken McElroy. From here's a cover if you need, right? And so, a little bit of why you should read the book is so like each piece of real estate that you own is kind of like a small business, right? Um, Small isn't the size, not necessarily like the type of business, right? And so this book seems like it's kind of like a fundamental, not just in terms of the ABCs of real estate investing, but it seems really like most of the like real estate investors are people who are in that space that at least I've talked to or have consumed content of have read his books, right? So it seems like it's kind of like a standard. Pretty much everyone who actively works in the space has read this book, along with a few of his others, right? Or at least a couple of his others. He has multiple. But, anyways, so Ken McElroy is kind of a true professional, right, in property management, and that in and of itself, he defines as one of the most important aspects of real estate investing, and then it's a long-term process that can make you lose the most amount of profits, right? That's where you make and lose your stuff is property management, which is where he got his kind of start and background, if I remember correctly, was in property management. I believe when he was in college, he helped manage a building, but that's being recalled from memory. But anyways, so who is he? Right, so he right now is a rich dad real estate advisor, has about 30 years of experience in multifamily asset and property management, and owns MC companies since it seems 1985, right? And so if you aren't familiar with the Rich Dad brand and that sort of thing, I highly recommend you look it up. There's, I think, dozens of books now and varying in various different aspects of finance, whether it be personal or like investing in like real estate, the stock market, that sort of thing. It's kind of all there. It's an education company at this point, and he's one of the advisors for that. So when was this book specifically published? Its first edition was in September 2004 to kind of put like how long it's been out there, just so it's kind of known. So what are you going to find in here more specifically? So basically, this book will teach you, and just kind of general what from his point of view. So to achieve wealth and cash flow through real estate, overcome the myths that are holding you back. He has a lot of stuff on like goal setting and what types of goals to set, like what are the characteristics of good goals, that sort of thing, time horizons, and how to kind of measure your progress through those, and how that kind of weaves into actually real estate investing, right? And that's one of the things he deems as very important, right? How to find property with real profit potential, don't find duds. Evaluate a property and set your own purchase price. Negotiate the deal based on the numbers, not necessarily what the seller wants, on your own kind of objective numbers, more or less. And so discover hidden profits in the properties you buy or own and increase your income through proven property management techniques, right? Talking about his own kind of words. He also has throughout the book 11 different myths about real estate that he says basically need to be put to rest. And then you can basically read those throughout there. I'm not going to read the book to you. So there's that. But just as an example, myth 11, the last one, is you have to know the tricks of the trade, and kind of just goes through that, basically putting that to rest, right? And a little bit more on the goals. He says that you have to create SMART goals, where SMART is an acronym, which stands for specific, measurable, agreed upon in writing, realistic, and time activated, right? And so spells out SMART. And basically each one of those should have milestones, right? Kind of throughout the whole thing, so you can measure your progress as you go. So basically these are to help you kind of change your behavior, which towards the whole financial freedom is like you have to have kind of certain habits and stuff to like get there, because people are very subconscious and they can't just people are very habitual, and so like you have to actually create the easiest way to attain long-term like life goals is to actually like be the type of person, meaning have the types of habits that will kind of put you in that space, right? Eventually you will get there. And he also talks about like how to create to-do lists to help do this. Another aspect of the book that he goes into is building a team for it. So like, who do you need and that sort of thing. He says pros and cons, and he also breaks this down into the pros and cons of including family members in there and whether or not that's a good idea, because it may or may not be, depending on who your family is, whatever. Not everyone has a brother who's an accountant, but just because you do doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be very helpful in the long term, right? And so another thing, characteristics of a good partnership, what to look for, that sort of thing, and then examples of the different teams you'll need to be successful in it, right? He also talks about 3 different levels of real estate research that he has and breaks those down individually. He gives advice on contacting sellers, actual math worked out for necessary stats of the property, for the basic stats you'll need, that sort of thing, and how to do that yourself how to evaluate yourself on each deal, right? He also gives advice on letters of intent and purchase and sale agreements, different contingencies to put in there, that sort of thing. Little things that if it's your first time or you're new, you probably wouldn't even ever think of, right? Because you're not familiar with the process if you've never done it before, that sort of thing. And he gives a whole due diligence checklist and that sort of thing to help you through that process as well. And finally, he gives advice on forcing price appreciation and adding value to the property. Basically, forcing value adds, right? And that sort of thing. And so, kind of just to talk about, obviously I'm not some major real estate investor, and that's not the point of me even doing this video, but it's kind of more to share the book. And whenever I do decide to start going into real estate and that sort of thing, which has been a major thing for me, is I'm definitely going to be basically using his books specifically, as kind of like a guide the whole time, and kind of going through them, reading them again, taking notes, and having them basically as like a working manual, so to say, as I go through the different processes and stuff like that. At least like at the end of each chapter, he gives like action steps. It's just like a bullet point list of what to work on, little tips and that sort of thing, right? And that's at the end of everything. He has charts to help. He has price breakdowns, like what to look for, and say like auditing files, interior inspections, government agency reviews, that sort of thing, right? So just so you kind of know what to expect in the book in general. So with that being said, I'll put a link in the description below, probably just for Amazon or whatever, for the book itself, so that you guys can get it and read it yourself, and hopefully it'll help you as well. So I'm going to leave that one here. I'm going to, as a card up in the, I think it's top right, for you guys, put the video for the advanced guide to real estate investing. Another one of his books, but just goes more in depth on specific things and is a bit more technical in that respect, right? As well as a playlist for more book reviews if that so interests you. So with that being said, hope to see you guys there.